they're off. Welcome to Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management by Dynasty Financial Partners and hosted by CEO Shirl Penney.
Welcome to Season 5 of Around the Track, coming to you live from Saratoga Springs, New York, here at the Oklahoma Track, which is the oldest sporting venue in America. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management. I'm your host, Shirl Penney, founder and CEO of Dynasty Financial Partners, and I'm really excited to be able to kick off Season 5, taping live on the Oklahoma Track here in Saratoga, which many of you may know is the oldest sporting venue in America. I'm also really excited to be able to kick off Season 5 with my good friend Rajiv Maragh, who is one of the greatest jockeys of his generation. Rajiv, thank you so much for sitting down and having this conversation with me on Around the Track.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, look, we talked a little bit about it. I know you're not much of a rule follower, but we only have one rule on Around the Track. I'm going to ask you 8 rapid-fire questions. Each one of those represents an eighth of a mile around the mile track behind us. I know you're pretty good at timing yourself in the race rides, so hopefully you can make it around in 15 minutes. You up for it?
Yeah, we usually go a little bit faster at a mile on the horseback, but we'll make it in 15 minutes.
We'll do. I don't know. You've ridden some of my horses a little too slow in the past. Maybe we'll talk about that. All right. Look, in life and in racing, how you break from the gate matters a lot. So let me give you a nice softball to get us going. Tell the audience about Rajiv, your family, your career in racing, and what you're up to now.
Well, I'm from Jamaica. When I was growing up there, my family was very involved into horse racing. So I developed that passion for becoming a jockey at a very young age, watching my dad ride and my uncle and my family. And that's what really inspired me to get into the industry. When I was about a young teenager, my parents, they knew I wanted to be a jockey, but they felt like Jamaica wasn't a valid career for a jockey. So they kind of told me if I wanted to be a jockey, I have to transition overseas. That's essentially how I ended up in America, right? And so I came here at about 15 years old, wrapped up my education with high school, and then went straight into the pros, learning how to ride at 18 years old. That led me into a career that even surpassed my wildest expectations. Like we talk about this all the time. My first goal was to just ride in a Breeders' Cup race. That was my ultimate dream, and I ended up winning 4. Yeah. So I really surpassed even my wildest expectations, knowing that I started in Jamaica and ended up where I did, winning almost 2,000 races.
Yeah, and I know you've gone on to become a great entrepreneur, which we'll come back and talk more about. I've heard some people, and I don't know if they're joking or not, but I love it when they say, your friend Rajiv, he's the third most famous Jamaican. And I'm like, all right, well, Bob Marley, Usain Bolt, and then maybe jump off a cliff, and then Rajiv is down there somewhere. But, in all seriousness, I know you're super proud, as you just mentioned, of your roots in Jamaica. When you came to America to ride and coming from a family that had been in the industry and had success, did you feel a sense of pressure to represent your family and your country well here in the U.S.?
That's a great question, and go back to the culture of Jamaica. Horse racing is a big part of the Jamaican lifestyle and culture. Mm-hmm. It's a mainstream sport for us. So everyone island-wide knows and follows horse racing. So when I was growing up and the success that my family had, the Maragh name, it was, evident. I'd see billboards driving through Kingston. My uncle and they're on the billboards. So, it was, for me, I didn't feel pressure, but I felt like there was a great opportunity, and I had a lot of people to represent.
Yeah. Like a responsibility.
I had that responsibility to represent them and make them proud. Not only my family and myself, but just the whole Jamaican racing community. And that every time I rode and had success, I felt like the success wasn't just for myself, but for the whole of those people. And you feel it when you go to Aqueduct,
Yeah.
where has been a big part of my career. It's heavily tilted with Jamaicans at the track screaming and yelling. So I used to thrive off that. Instead of feeling pressure, I felt like it was a good motivator.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's going to be, Rajiv, a lot of people, I think, watching this interview that are going through some type of change in their career. Maybe somebody's thinking about retiring. Maybe somebody is thinking about launching their own independent REA, which is a big part of our audience. You've gone through a pretty significant change, having been a world-class athlete and then making a transition. You're now an on-air personality, which I think you do a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
But I also know that you're an entrepreneur who's had a lot of early success. What has that transition been like, and what have you learned about yourself through that transition?
Wow. So I don't even think 2 minutes is going to be fair, so but I'll try to condense it as best as I can. The first thing that happened for me was, I know I'm an athlete, and athletes have a limited career span. And different sports, it's different. But for jockeys, you never know when that's going to come, because you're so prone, and it's such a risky job that you could get injured at any time and be taken away from you. So it's hard to plan your exit strategy out of being a jockey. And I always felt like I wanted to have some diversity outside of horse racing. And when COVID happened, it was when everything just slapped me in the face, because when we saw multitudes of industries shut down, and even a big part of horse racing was shut down, different jurisdictions. I was fortunate to be in Florida at the time, and we were able to run.
Right.
But I was awakened by the fact that it's not just my injuries that could stop me. The industry could just be taken away. They'd stop racing. And then what do I do? So I really wanted to diversify myself, and I didn't know when the time was going to come. But that's when the time really came that said, you know what, if there's any opportunities out there, in my mid-30s at the time, would be the perfect segue into going to something else. Really didn't want to stop riding, but I was trying to, see what was out there.
Yeah, awesome. So, look, social media, it doesn't matter what business you're in now, it seems like, building a brand presence online. There's a lot of different avenues, obviously, to do that through. You have quite a following on social media. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But you more recently transitioned, again, to being an on-air personality. And I'm biased because we're friends, but I think you're super at what you do there. For someone who's thinking about getting in front of the camera more, maybe for the first time, what advice would you give them in terms of preparing, practicing, being able to make that transition?
Oof. I think, I wouldn't be the right person to take an advice from, because I think I am probably the only person that I know in my circle that is on air that really just doesn't train to do it. I just do it as it comes.
You just wing it.
I just wing it. So I wing it. I feel like myself, I just want to be myself. And the same way that I don't go out there to impress anyone at all. And it came from how I ended up on the air. It was so organic and was unexpected. I didn't plan to do it. I was invited as a guest on the show, just catching up for one race. And the producers afterwards, they approached me like, man, you were very
You're
good.
natural.
Is it something that you'd want to do? And I was like, I really never thought about doing it. I was approached to do on-air stuff when I was writing, and I really didn't have any interest to do it. I never thought I'd have any interest. But I actually enjoyed it, and my life is different now. I'm not into the racing, so I kind of felt like, well, there's an opportunity to stay in horse racing. Because I didn't miss it when I went cold turkey for a couple of years. And so when I came back in, they said, let's have a couple of test days, almost like an audition. but I never felt like I was auditioning.
Yeah.
I just felt like if you know, you see what you get for face value, that's what I'm gonna be, and that's it. Which I think helps a lot. I feel like if you try to force and be something that you're not to impress somebody to get that position on the air, or to try to be something that you're not, then you won't have the success. What I would say is, I do work at my execution.
Yeah.
You know, I try to look at what I do and learn from it and try to be better at it.
Got it. So I want to ask you a question about adversity. I mean, look, anyone in, seems like any walk of life, certainly with entrepreneurs, you know, adversity builds character. And if you look behind a lot of really successful entrepreneurs, they've overcome, in some cases, pretty extreme adversity. You mentioned earlier, you know, you won 4 Breeders' Cup, you've won nearly 2,000 races, you've ridden in the Kentucky Derby, you've done pretty much everything that you can do in the sport. You've won some big races for me and in Team Penny. You've lost some races for us too. But along the way, you've had some really tough adversity. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you learned about yourself as you worked through that to get back to a point to have the level of success that you had?
Wow, yeah, so adversity in this occupation, when I was getting into it, being a jockey, I understood that it's a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
There's going to be highs of the highest and the lows of the lowest, and it can happen in the blink of an eye. And as far as my career, a couple of biggest adverse moments for me was riding was when I won the Jockey Club. I won the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic.
Yeah.
With main sequence, #1 ranked horse on the grass, and that win made me the #1 earning jockey in the country. I hit the pinnacle of the sport. 30 minutes later, I'm riding the favorite in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, Wicked Strong. I fall and snap my arm in two, right? So the highest of highs and lowest of lows within 30 minutes. But the one thing that I think that kept me linear over the course of my career was planning. I always thought about my career not as one moment, but as a work of a body over a long term. And I accepted that. So from the day I start riding till when it's going to be the end of my career, I wanted to look at that body of work. And that made the day-to-day swings irrelevant. Yeah. Because I can look back now and say, I won 4 Breeders' Cup, I won 30 Grade 1 races, raced 5 times in the Kentucky Derby, I won races in Japan and all these things. Yeah, I had days when I fall and broke my arm and stuff, but with the right
your back.
And I had a horse fall on me. I wore a body brace for a year.
Yeah.
Almost lost my life in that accident, and it didn't really matter at the end of the day because it's the whole body of work. Yeah. And I accepted that from day one and understood that, and I think that's what kept the emotional swings contained.
Yeah.
So if you know the speed bumps, you just take it with a.
Yeah, I so strongly believe in the power of visualization. I also believe in manifestation, right? What you can truly see in your mind's eye, like what you see is what you can be. And you saw that there was going to be adversity along the way, and like you said, it was the body of work. So when it happened, you didn't allow it to get you down as much. I love that. So look, we're coming off we're headed towards the turn, the far turn. So just 3 questions left as we head for home. I do want to give you an opportunity because I know how proud and excited you are with Road Jockey in the business that you've built. Tell us a little bit about Road Jockey.
Well, Road Jockey is an e-commerce marketplace that facilitates delivery in the Caribbean. Well, we want to be in the entire Caribbean. We piloted in Jamaica, which is where we're at right now. We now provide food delivery services through our app in Kingston and Montego Bay, the 2 major cities in Jamaica. And for Road Jockey, our vision is to be the one-stop e-commerce shop for the whole Caribbean. That's where we're headed, and it's just so amazing for me to be able to go back to Jamaica, start that as a Jamaican company. So the founders of Road Jockey, with my partner and the investors, we're all Jamaican company, and we want to make Jamaica proud by being the Jamaican company that powers the Caribbean, because that is, the
Yeah.
Caribbean.
Does it have like your little photo on the road jockey?
Well, the coolest thing for Road Jockey for me, so if you're on like Uber Eats or DoorDash and you're tracking your order, you'll see an icon of a car.
Right.
At Road Jockey, you see an icon of a guy riding a horse.
Of course, of course.
So that's one of my, I know it's a small thing, but that's one of my favorite features.
Yeah. All right, so in any business, right, you need to innovate, right, to grow over time. I know you are still very passionate about, the industry and the sport of horse racing. What innovations do you think, we could bring into the sport that would help the sport? And I'm going to tag on, one more question as a part of it. As an athlete and someone being, in the sport, do you think that there's anything the industry could do to improve financial literacy for the jockeys, the trainers? It doesn't seem like there's really, one particular wealth management firm, that works within the industry.
So for the first question, accessibility. The horse racing hasn't been able to capitalize on the power of technology to make things more accessible and streamlined. So, these manual processes and these tedious processes that can easily be expedited by the touch of a button at your fingertips. There's a huge market gap for that in horse racing, which I know that there's now new players come in and people are understanding that. But when you think about other industries that have already been forefront and proactive, horse racing has been really reactive and always playing catch up. So I feel like with young people coming in, and even for myself, that's one of the parts that I focus on with my tech side of it. It's to now, bring accessibility and streamline these outdated, tedious processes. For the part number two, the financial literacy part, absolutely. I'll tell you, for me, when I first started riding, the cash flow is very good. We're making, top jockeys are making, 7 figures, multiple millions and stuff. So you have a massive cash flow every week. Boom, you're getting big checks. And we, as a whole, don't utilize that capital to earn money and make that money work for you.
Right.
It's, oh man, when I started, I was just holding on to the money and just paying my taxes and whatever because I see the money and I'm scared to invest, because I hear horror stories of people investing, losing their money, not only by making bad investments, but also by being ripped off by people that are, bad apples. So I think the whole racetrack jockey community has that mentality. They're scared to invest. They're worried. So they end up getting, diluted by inflation. And Mike Rapoli, which is a mutual friend of ours, he's the one that took me and said, look, you have to invest. And he structured something for me. I was still very conservative, but that was a big turning point in how I had actually saved money and made some good money out of it. Retain good money.
Yeah, Mike's a good financial mentor to have, right? And Mike and I think a lot of people know, he was the co-namer of Dynasty.
Nice.
And we named the company together about 15 years ago here in Saratoga. And I think, if anyone's watching this and looking for a financial advisor, I would encourage someone to look for a fiduciary financial advisor, which is someone who only works for you, who's independent, who doesn't work for the product manufacturer. Right, because the way that you improve someone's financial literacy or financial well-being or health isn't by selling them products that they don't need. It's by educating and giving them advice. And certainly Dynasty, we have a program where we connect people who need financial advisors to advisors. Okay, Raj, here comes the finish line. Last question, and it's the same question I've asked every guest on 50 plus episodes of Around the Track. What is your triple crown? And what I mean by that is, what is that really big, significant, seemingly unattainable goal that sits out there that gets you flying out of bed in the morning to run hard towards? What would Rajiv Marag's triple crown in life be?
My true ultimate passion, no matter what else I do in life, it always comes back to horse racing. That is, the thing that really spurs me on the most. I'm just obsessed with the sport, obsessed with everything about it, because that's embedded in me from birth,
Yeah.
essentially. And want to build the ultimate horse ownership hub of the entire industry, because horse ownership at a large scale, to have a big stable of your dreams, is really now only attainable to the super wealthy and elite. Yeah, there's so many racing fans that cannot ever dream about having the opportunity to have this a mega stable. And I want to make that possible. I feel like every person that loves horse racing should be able to have the stable of their dreams. And in my horse ownership hub, I want to make that possible.
I love it. So there's so much similarity in what you just said, in that you want to democratize access to the horses, within the industry. That's a lot of the passion that I had when we started Dynasty, which is democratizing the access to world-class financial advice to more people, not just their ultra wealthy. So, Rajiv, thank you for sitting down and having this conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
It was as fun as that I knew it would be. And thank you to all of you for tuning in again for another episode of Around the Track.